Good afternoon, Harlem and Harlems of the world. I'm Terri Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. This is really a very significant day. We're a week into January 2022, so it's amazing, and it's hard to believe that Harlem Network News started in the onset of COVID 2020, and here we are, it's 2022. As many of you know, we are a new media platform, and we are really here to ensure that the Harlems and the Harlems of the world are informed. Knowledge is power. Often our stories are not told, or if they're told, they're not really told properly. So it's important that we tell our own stories. We are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, HarlemNetworkNews.com, Twitter, Clubhouse, and soon to be on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Today, we have a very special guest, and you heard it and saw it first on Harlem Network News. We are honored to have with us our new City Council member for District 9, and that is Kristin Richardson Jordan. So if you would just say hello to Harlem and Harlems of the world and the entire world and the universe, and just let us know whose you are and who you are. Thank you. Thank you, Kristin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to be here. I really appreciate just the purpose and vision of us being able to tell our own stories. And I feel really grateful to be able to tell my story in my own words, because needless to say, certainly if you're watching this and you're a Harlemite, you know that there's been a lot going around, including, frankly, some bad faith attacks on character and things that are also just, not true. And that's because we really shook things up with this election. And I am, a third generation Harlemite. I am a democratic socialist. I'm an abolitionist. I consider myself one with Black radical tradition and Black liberation, freedom fighting, and this was a really historic election. And as is often the case when you bring in something new, sometimes that scares people and it throws people off. So again, I just appreciate the chance to be able to tell my story in my own words to Harlemites and to Harlems of the world.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. If you would share, for those of you who are just joining, we just got started, and we have our new council member, Kristin Richardson Jordan, and she's here with us for the first time. And so you saw it, you heard it first here, and she's going to have an opportunity for you to get to know her. What has your path been? What has your journey been? What made you decide to run for council? And like you said, it was, a pretty historic race, because we did have council member Bill Perkins, who had been on for many years and, been in the public official scenario. In fact, he was one of the first people to endorse President Obama before anybody else did. So you have big shoes to fill. And so what made you decide, like, okay, I need to jump in here now. I have some ideas. And, you said a lot of words that maybe some people aren't familiar with, and how that goes across the Democratic platform. You said socialist, radical, things like that.
This is
so, those are buzzwords. So you break it down. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Well, so I'll start with just a bit about my story. So, like I said, I'm third generation Harlem. So I grew up here. I've known the district since I was 3 months old, and I'm totally biased, but I just have a ton of love for Harlem because our community is really a Black beacon, a mecca of the world. We have so much heritage and history and culture. And we also have wonderful political traditions, including some of the buzzwords that I just spoke about, where we have the Black Panthers, the New York chapter of the Black Panthers right here in Harlem that were, they were right there on 126th Street. And we have a whole bunch of just freedom fighting and legacy movements. And we haven't necessarily seen the most revolutionary of our movements in positions of power in Harlem. So I'm excited to bring in some of that energy, and that's a little bit of what I mean when I talk about disruption. I'm talking about disrupting old systems and white supremacy. And then what inspired me to run really was looking at some of the elections of the squad and seeing these, so not just everyone talks about AOC, but not just AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, Rashid Tlaib, and looking at them, speaking this truth to power, particularly the Black women in that group speaking truth to power and running these races and winning, it just opened my mind to the idea that I could do more than scream at the machine, although there's plenty of times where we should protest. And even as a elected for only 1 week, I've already led a protest.
Okay.
But for me, it sort of opened the door to think about not just railing at the machine, but what could be done in and within it to make concrete change. And I just was really inspired. And then I know there is a ton of respect for the former council member. And I just want to be clear, I think everyone who has come before has opened up doors. And whether we agree completely on political vision or not, the thing about being Black people in Black community and fighting white supremacy is that it's always this opening up of doors, attempting to gain access to our freedom and to be able to liberate ourselves and be able to really be in our Black empowerment. So I'm always going to have respect and love for that struggle in sort of a bigger picture, we need to take down white supremacy way. So I in no way want to trample on the legacy of the former council member. I did, however, strongly disagree with his vote for new jails. And part of what did motivate me to get into the race was as somebody who believes in the possibility of a world without jails, and who really wants to see us invest money in stopping the root causes of violence, I really felt motivated to get in there and give a different perspective on the $10 billion that's being allocated for new jails, all the better places and spaces that I think that money could go. So that was part of the motivation to challenge the last council member.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. For those of you who are just joining, I'm Terri Wisdom. I'm your host for today for Harlem Network News. And we're honored to have our new council member for District 9 with us. And this is her first appearance on Harlem Network News. So it's a great day in Harlem, as every day. And you were just reiterating, one of your views in terms of not building more jails, and you think there's another way that we can do this. And it's interesting because I know our new district attorney, Alvin Bragg, was over at National Action Network yesterday and, reiterated, what he thought in terms of low-level crimes. And there was already some pushback from our new police chief. So it's interesting that you are on that kind of view and that kind of frequency.
Yes,
certainly.
Yes, I agree with him.
Crime is one of the issues that we're fighting, but there are systemic reasons that are flowing through the community, and we need to get to the root cause of it. So I think that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very aligned on that issue with the new district attorney. I think he made the right call by saying he's not going to prosecute the low level offenses, um, and I think uh, poverty, poverty is
Mhm.
at the root, and instead of criminalizing uh, our people and criminalizing people, we need to look at how we address poverty, and all that comes with it, that sort of festers and creates the seeds for violence. And I do like to say violence as opposed to crime, because I also think we need to look at what is crime, because some of the things that are labeled criminal really shouldn't be, like with marijuana use for so many years.
Mhm. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And we're a little bit into our show, but as you are having me reflect, I just want to give a salute to all our ancestors, because we are here.
Ashe,
We stand on
ashe.
their shoulders, and we have lost so many. And when you say the violence that is happening, I mean, it's near and dear to me. I just lost my 43-year-old son, who would have been 44 on January, and it was due to gun violence. He was shot assassination style on the Shinnecock Reservation, which has a lot of the same systemic problems as many reservations do across the country. And so it's a big issue. I know that at his wake, Reverend Al Taylor, stated, oh, here's a mother that checked all the boxes. He was part of the Harlem Little League. He, was in Harlem School of the Arts. He, participated in all these things, but it's still not enough. Even with all of that, he was also formerly incarcerated as half our community is. So there's a lot of getting to the core of this so that we can really make some change. And in a lot of instances, my son, this happened on November 5th. Only state troopers can go onto the reservation. There's been no resolve. Nobody's even called me. I know it's the holidays, but I've got to take up the banner and solve my own son's case and get the governor and whoever else involved. So these are some of the things, and this is murder. So there's so much that's on our head. I also want to give a salute to Sidney Portier, who transitioned on January 6th, my son's 44th birthday, first birthday in heaven, for doing so much in the civil rights movement. A lot of people don't know how he and Harry Belafonte got all kinds of funds and stuff together to help people. And I also want to salute Lonnie Guinier, who also transitioned, one of our formidable professors, one of the first Black women professors at Harvard. And I did have the honor to actually go to school with one of her sisters, or, we were in sister schools, and dance class with another sister and neighbor with another sister. So somebody to study.
I appreciate that. I had the great honor of getting to meet Lonnie Guinier because she was connected with my great uncle, who is Professor Howard Myrick at Temple. And at the time, I was taking a race and representation class at Brown University. And we really got into a deep discussion about symbolic representation versus substantive representation. And she was just really brilliant and really inspiring with helping me to really think outside the box in terms of representation in a substantive way and not just symbolic way.
Okay.
So really a
so
giant.
break it down, substantive.
So no, I'm sorry. Some substantive representation means the full picture, the policies. So if we look, for example, take Obama, right? This is a good example of someone who was both. So if we look at if we look at symbolic representation, we have the first Black president. We have a Black male president, right? So that's symbolic representation. Then substantively, we have someone who fought for universal health care, which is an issue that at its core would help Black people and really serve Black people. We have someone who talked about voting rights, which would really serve and help Black people. So that's an example of someone with both the symbolic and the substantive representation. Now, certainly as a Black radical, I have critiques, but in general, there you go. But then take, for example, someone like Clarence Thomas, who we have symbolic representation because there's a Black male on the Supreme Court, but we do not have for what many of us would see as substantive representation, because the values, the policies, the things he puts forth are not liberation for our people.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And I'm sorry, I should be watching.
It's okay. Harlem Network News, one of our mottos is knowledge is power. So I want to make sure everybody understands everything. That'll help us. As we're moving along, Council Member Kristin, what are some of the major concerns in our District 9? And how many days in are you, and what have you had to do so far? Thank you.
So I am in week 1, which is it's still very exhilarating. I think some of the main concerns are things that we're grappling right off the bat. I think one of them that's been, you know, fairly publicized at this point is the 145 project. I walked in to a ULERT process, and that connects to a larger issue of housing in our district, and of keeping our Black plurality in district, and of stopping the displacement of our people, and the displacement of people from Harlem. And so actually on day 1, which was January 3rd, and it was also actually my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. I hosted a rally on that day titled Harlem Not for Sale. And we were talking about the 145 development, but we were also talking about a larger need for housing in Harlem, and to stop the displacement, particularly of longtime Black residents of Harlem. So that's something that's a front and center issue for the district that we've started working on already. The other thing is, this is not as I guess, juicy, but I think it is important, is sanitation. We have a huge issue in terms of lack of trash pickups, and in terms of the lack of trash cans. And I actually, before even taking the seat, was able to negotiate with Department of Sanitation to get 32 additional trash cans to our district. And then I and my team surveyed the landscape to replace 32 of the old cans with new cans. And this is something that I intend to continue doing, particularly with the old baskets. I know it sounds small, but it's contributing.
No, it's huge. Huge, especially in Harlem. And I'm sure that you know, which is very interesting. One of your predecessor, Bill Perkins' thing was really getting the whole rat thing out of Harlem. So you looking for, and it's a simple thing. I am looking at that. Very simple thing, in terms of having the roll down top garbage cans, like in other parts of the city. It's pretty.
Yeah. It's why don't we have it here in Harlem? And it speaks to a larger psychology, a larger issue of equity and environmental injustice. And so we really need to really continue to rectify that. I'm actually doing a very cool Insta Live this Tuesday on rat control. So I'll go ahead and plug that. If you're
Okay, Insta
interested
Live.
Insta Live, if you
Insta
get on
Live. Break
Insta,
that down.
um,
We have listeners of all ages. So
oh, I hear you. Okay. Well, you know what? I will make sure to have the recording put on my Facebook as well. So if you don't catch
okay,
the
great.
Insta, you can see it on
Okay,
my Facebook.
okay.
But I'm talking to an animal rights activist about rat control. And it's very interesting because actually the things that would be most humane for the rats are actually also the things that are most effective in terms of decreasing food supply and closing up the cans and having rat protected cans and actually decreasing the population of rats. These are things we really need to do, and they're not the simple solution and they're not necessarily the cheap solution, but they are the right solution to the sanitation issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So from a standpoint, this is Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News. And we, as you know, are on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, harlemnetworknews.com. We come on every Sunday at 4. We also do specials, and we've been on since the onset of COVID. Today, we are speaking with our new city council member, District 9, and that's Kristin Richardson Jordan. I always want to invert that, but I got it. And, she's talking about some of the most important issues. And, she's just had to jump right in, started on her birthday with a rally on January 3rd, dealing with the 145 project. Would you just explain briefly, just so the audience knows, what is the 145 project and why is it such a benchmark? And what is EULA? What is EULA? We hear that all the time, but what is it? It's obviously important. It impacts us. Who is EULA? What is EULA? Thank you.
Yeah, so basically the 145, I'll start with 145. So the 145 development, it is a plan to develop a strip of 5 lots right on 145th and Lenox, or 145th and Malcolm X. And the current proposal has two tall towers with over 600 market rate units of housing. They are including 20% what's called mandatory inclusionary housing, which is supposedly affordable. This is a very small group of the larger units. This pricing of quote affordability is actually not affordable to our district. The median household income in Harlem is 49,000, and this would price out the average Harlemites. And the developer is connecting this project to a new museum, a proposed civil rights museum, and a new headquarters for National Action Network. And so this has become fairly controversial, I think, because of that. And so I just, in the spirit of setting the records straight, I just want to put out there that I am not against a museum. That is not an issue for me. I know there are some people who are arguing that. I will say I personally am not arguing that. We do have a nice representation of museums and cultural institutions in Harlem. But I am perfectly fine. We could have all the stuff. But as far as I'm concerned, we could have everything. But what concerns me is the affordability of the housing and the lack of affordability of the housing and these market rate units. And to get to the ULURP process, the ULURP process is a process by which a new development gets approved or disapproved. And it goes through a community board, which is the first step. And in this case, the 145 project was voted down. It was a recommended no vote. It then goes
That
to
was Community Board 10.
Community Board
Okay,
10, correct.
because it's in Community Board 10,
Yes, yes, because
which is really Central Harlem. Yeah.
yes, Central Harlem, yes. And I'm very excited about the community board's decision. I also got to witness some of the exchanges and the questions that the community board had, very intelligent questions that were posed to the developer without answers, quite a few of them without details. There was an ask for the floor plans that wasn't shown. There was a conversation about having talked to people for over 4 years. We asked, the board asked about who they talked to. It wasn't clear who that list was, who those people were.
Okay.
So I just want to say there's been some things, there's issues with the project itself, and then there's also been some things in the process that are indicating bad faith and make me nervous about this project.
Okay, so
Yeah.
in your capacity as a city council member, where do you fit in? What impact do you have? Because this project, because of the lack of housing that people that are in Harlem can actually afford, it's really meaning a big deal. It's a big benchmark for what can be the future of Harlem. How do you, as a city council member, fit in?
Well, so this is somewhat perfect timing because I know he's coming on, but actually the
Right.
next
Yes,
step,
yes, they're already on.
yeah, I say
They're
the next step after the
okay.
yeah, say the next step after the community board's vote is actually, and it is a recommendation vote, is a second recommendation vote by the Manhattan Borough President, who would be our new Manhattan Borough President, Mark Levine.
Okay.
And then after, and then after that, it goes to city planning. And it could potentially stop at city planning, although these projects usually don't. If we look at the Olnick rezoning, it was approved by city planning. And then the last step is it goes to the city council, where it is approved or disapproved in the city council. Now, I should say that if it's voted down in city council, it can potentially get vetoed by the mayor, and then the city council, if we have 2/3, could vote it down again. But as a councilwoman for Central Harlem, I would be voting it down in the city council level.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you. I'm going to, everybody can see our new borough president, Mark Levine. So if you would just say hello to Harlem Network News audience and to the city, the world. And then I'm just have one more quick question, and we're going to segue to you and see if our new city council member has a couple of words to exchange.
Thank you, Terri Wisdom. Thank you, Harlem Network News, for having me on. Thank you, council member. It's wonderful to see you, council member Kristin Richardson Jordan.
All right.
Always
who
a pleasure.
Pleased to be partnering with on behalf of Uptown Manhattan. And it's great that Athena Moore is here, who is well known and has been
so pretty.
She's been an important leader for Uptown for many years, and thrilled that she is still with us in our Northern Manhattan office. But I think you want to finish your interview with the council member, so I'll go back on mute. But I'm happy to be here.
There was just one question that I thought was important, and council member, we absolutely are going to have you back because I know that you have like 11 points. And I'll just run down them quickly. We can't talk about them today, but there were per 11 points. It would count on cannabis legislation in Harlem, why we need an alternative 3 strikes plan to restorative justice, economic justice for Harlem, 11 steps to the homegrown solidarity economy for Harlem small businesses, 11 steps for the senior care package, Harlem Green Roofs, we were talking about that.
Yeah.
A socialist take on power grid, publicly owned,
Oh, yeah.
democratically run utilities, environmental justice for Harlem, uh, stop medical redlining in Central Harlem, and Harlem food justice. So, you know, those are all conversations within themselves and
Yes.
valid, and we'd love to have you back to talk about those. But we did have one question from the audience, and then we're going to segue to Mark Levine. And if you have any questions or something you'd like to exchange since we have you both on, that would be great. And then it's your world, a new borough president of Manhattan. Okay, so we have a question from someone in the audience, Nicole Yearwood, who's very active in our community. And she would like to know, can you explain your vote for city council speaker? The short.
Definitely. So first, I would definitely love to come back on and talk about like that whole list, particularly the public utilities, because at this time of Omicron, we're seeing the surge again of where there is a technology gap. And one of the things that I think we could do that would really help our seniors and help those who are struggling the most is looking at a public utility and looking at making internet free for all. So that, I know that's another conversation. I also just want to add that I appreciate the reading because a lot of times there's assumptions made about my positions and people aren't seeing that, you know, I am a writer. I love to write. There's so much on my website. So I appreciate you taking a look at it. And I hope others will too. And then in terms of the speaker vote, I want to start by saying that I am absolutely pro Black women. If it needn't be said, Black women all day. Me, myself, my campaign executives, my office is predominantly Black women with who we've hired so far. So I do hope people will move away from what I think are some like really poor assumptions there around that. It's not about the symbolic representation. For me, it's about substantive representation and about democracy. Before the mayor weighed in, we had a different vote in our council, and we had a different process going on. And I don't think it was right or just for the mayor to weigh in so heavily. And I don't think we as council members should have let it happen, to be perfectly honest. I think we should have owned that democratic space. And that's what my speaker's vote was about. And I hope to still legislatively work with the speaker. I'm in touch with, you know, many council members, many people. I think we should, you know, continue striving forward and working together. But, you know, my vote is my vote, and I do stand by it.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Thank you for answering the question. And do you have anything across the Zoom that you would like to ask our new borough president, or are there some projects that you all are working together? I know I had a question in there, and I don't know where it fits if it's not here. I'm Terri Wisdom, this is Harlem Network News, but I know that we had the vote in the city council that is allowing, and I may not be saying it right, but people that are not citizens to vote in their local elections. So I don't know if that's relevant to some of the things we're going to talk about, but you can ask our borough president anything that you think is important, and then we're going to let him know.
Well, I think I just wanted to say, you know, hi again and say thank you.
Hey, council member.
Yeah, and I don't it's not particularly a question, but I do want to publicly shout out Mark Levine and his office for helping us with some testing kits and for helping supply testing kits to the community of Central Harlem, and specifically for working with my office in being able to get some kits really out to our community. We've been doing free testing on Saturdays in front of the new District 9 office, which is 181 West 135th Street. We you know, and I appreciate a lot of your initiatives on health, and also your strong stance on harm reduction is something that I believe in, and just, I guess, thank you for that as well. I know that's not a question, but
that was much better than a question. Thank you so much, council member.
Okay.
I'm excited to work with you.
Same.
And congratulations. I didn't really say
you.
Congratulations. We've been through so much with COVID and scabs getting pulled off of wounds, but I'm very excited and I'm very hopeful with a lot of the new administrations and public officials. And one of the great things, I'm a diehard media person. So I love the fact that both of you are so responsive. Your offices are responsive. You text people, they text you back, even if it's 11 o'clock at night. You write something, they respond. And, that's, I guess, because of the kind of business I'm in, that's my expectation. So I love it. And I think it's a prelude to getting stuff done, which is what we need to do. We're not always going to agree. We're going to agree to disagree. But if we're proactive, I think it's a very good thing. And if people get an opportunity to, have their voices be heard and understand what's going on and know what's going on, because a lot happens here in Harlem. And often, though I'm doing media, and that's why I want to expand Harlem Network News further. But of course, the churches have always been our drumbeat. I'm a member of the Abyssinian Baptist Church. I was listening to church this morning, and that's where I found out that the new deputy borough president is Keisha Sutton James. So
yes, it is.
So that's a wonderful thing. She's been very proactive, been on here, helped a lot. But I'm just saying that it's important that there's so many circles for us to actually hear and know what's going on in our community.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Back to you. How can people
get again for having me on? And I just want to say my grandparents were actually married in Abyssinia Baptist Church, even though I go to Salem. But I'm very familiar with it.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Take care,
so what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Kristin?
So the best is you can definitely email us. It's Kristin for Harlem, Kristin for Harlem @gmail.com. And you can also reach out to me. Text is absolutely the best way at 347-276-8344. And we're also working on getting our constituent services up and running, but the office is open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and open 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturdays. And that's 181 West 135th Street.
Okay, excellent. And I know you have some meetings coming up Monday on the 145, so folks can call and find out about that. Yeah, so it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So Athena Moore, are you still on with us? Thank you. Okay, I think you're muted, Athena. Unmute.
Thank you, Terry. I'm here.
Okay. So if you would introduce yourself, I know many people do know you, but what is your role in this great borough president's office again with Mark Levine, and just share with us, and then we'll let you officially introduce our new borough president. So thank you, Athena.
Thank you, Terry. It's always a pleasure to be with Harlem Network News, but this is a day that I'm going to decrease me and increase Mark Levine. Okay. I've had the privilege for the past 8 years in Gail Brewer's administration as director of the Northern Manhattan office to serve alongside Mark Levine and his stellar team. It is equally wonderful to now be there, just bridging in transition with his administration, and whatever I can do to continue to support and serve, I am here. But Mark Levine needs no introduction because he has been at the forefront of the COVID-19 pandemic. He's been doing this work on the ground for many years. And so without further ado, your new Borough President, Mark Levine.
Thank you so much, Athena. Really grateful for you and your leadership.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you, Mark.
welcome. Congratulations. And I think the last time we had you on Harlem Network News, that was in campaign mode.
That's
And,
right.
Here we are, got all the way through. So if you would just, we make no assumptions here at Harlem Network News. So if you would just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, whose you are, a bit of background about you, and what this journey to the Manhattan Borough President has been for you, and why it was important for you to aspire to become the Borough President of Manhattan. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Terry. I am really grateful to be back here on Harlem Network News. We were here in the campaign, and now this is my first week on the job.
All right.
So thrilled to be here right out of the gate. I do want to start on a more somber note, Terry, by offering my heartfelt condolences to you and the passing of your wonderful son. I'm just heartbroken that you would have to endure that. I know how difficult that has to be as a father of two boys myself. And it's just a reminder of the scourge of gun violence and everything we all have to do to take on what is really the other pandemic that we need to be addressing.
Absolutely.
So my heart goes out to you. And unfortunately, tonight, Terry, I'm sure you're aware that we're dealing with shocking news out of the Bronx. The worst fire in over 30 years, which has taken the life of, I believe at last count, 19 individuals, including 9 children, at an apartment building on East 181st Street. I believe it's called Twin Parks.
Wow.
It's just devastating. We're still learning a little bit more about what happened, but we know that the toll is almost too much to bear. So I've been in touch with my colleague in the Bronx, Borough President Vanessa Gibson. And I think I can say that all of Manhattan stands with the Bronx tonight. I know you have many viewers in the Bronx as well, Terry. So
thank you so much. We deal, it's the pandemic, and then, like you said, we have the tragedies, the gun violence, and it hits home. Here I am. I couldn't say it could, if it had to happen to me, then I'm going to take up the mantle. I've been taking up the mantle on the gun violence, but now that it is in home and my family, I have to stand. I have joined Harlem Mothers Save with Jackie Rowe Adams, had her on. There are so many people who have had this experience. I'm working with the Shinnecock Reservation where this happened. They have a lot of crime and drugs and gun violence going on there. There's no resolve. We don't know. We don't have a witness. We don't know who did this. We don't know why they did it. The state troopers are involved, and I'm working with some of the public officials to reach out to the governor, because it's almost like when things happen, it's almost like the parent or family member has to start solving the crime themselves. So there's a lot to look at. And then even in terms of housing, what is happening, fires cause, disparities, there's so much, and that's in the midst of COVID and Omicron. So it's just a lot. So thank you.
It sure
for
is.
offering that.
It sure is. It sure is. But on to perhaps a more optimistic topic. I am really honored now to have completed my first week as the new Manhattan Borough President, following the incomparable Gail Brewer, who I believe was a guest here and was known to everybody in Manhattan and beyond. Just an incredible leader. this is really the culmination of a couple decades of public service for me. I started my career after college as a teacher in the Bronx, actually. Unfortunately, not that far from where the horrible fire took place today. I taught at a junior high school, 149. I taught bilingual math and science. And that really launched me into a career of community work. I ended up starting a nonprofit here uptown, a community development credit union, kind of like a nonprofit bank. It's called Neighborhood Trust. It's located on 166th and St. Nicholas Avenue, still going strong all these years later.
Beautiful.
It's made tens of millions of dollars in small loans to people in the neighborhood who might not have had another place to turn for credit, people who have been able then to buy their first home computer, to pay for education, to start a small business, even to become owners of their own homes. And you know, Terry, the repayment rate on those loans, which now are more than 25 million, is 98%. So it's an incredible testament to uptown Manhattan and to the power of giving people an opportunity. That's really the base that launched me into politics. 5,000 members strong at the first time I ran, and I was really honored to be elected twice in the 7th Council District. The 7th District is Washington Heights, Southern Washington Heights, where I live with my family, my wife Evelise and our 2 boys. The district includes West Harlem, basically west of St. Nicholas, and a little bit of the West Side and Morningside Heights. It goes down to 96th Street. So
huge district.
Huge district and diverse.
A potpourri, I was going to
Yes,
say.
indeed. Yes, indeed.
Columbus is in there. It's
yeah, it's a diverse district. It's a dynamic district, a district with challenges. My first term, I was honored to chair the Parks Committee, and I really fought for equity in the park system because we know that parks uptown are not getting their fair share. They're not getting the kind of money that some of the parks which can raise private dollars get. And so really fought for more equity in parks funding and was able to steer a lot of money into parks that you'll know well, like Morningside Park, where we were able to renovate the basketball court and playground in the middle of the park, which is really beloved by residents of the surrounding community, and many, many other parks renovations. This term, as you referenced, or perhaps as Councilmember Jordan referenced, I've been chairing the Health Committee. And in that capacity, I think we spoke a lot about this when I was on last. In that capacity, I've been really put my heart and soul into fighting this pandemic and standing up for science and equity and compassion and calling out all the ways that this pandemic has had, honestly, a brutal impact on Harlem and uptown.
Yeah.
From the first days, disproportionate number of people who have gotten sick, a disproportionate people who have landed in the hospital, and I'm sorry to say, Terry, a disproportionate number of people who have died from COVID. Absolutely. And that has continued into this wave. Harlem Hospital in particular has been hit hard, as have other nearby hospitals uptown like Metropolitan and East Harlem, Mount Sinai Morningside, AKA St. Luke's. It's been a rough couple of years uptown, and I've stood up and demanded resources for uptown and demanded more equity in the way we've responded to this pandemic. And now as now as Borough President, I'm going to continue that fight for public health and going to continue that fight against the pandemic. And we've already started out of the gate working to bring resources uptown. We have launched a testing site at my Northern Manhattan office on 125th Street. It's 431 West 125th between Amsterdam and Morningside. And we're offering free testing, no cost, every day, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. right outside of our district office. The lines have been pretty minimal. It's a PCR test, which is a very high quality test. Okay. And so if any of you are watching and are looking for a place in the neighborhood to get tested, you can come on by. And as Councilmember Jordan referenced, we've also been able to secure several thousand rapid testing kits for home self kits. Excellent. And we're distributing them through local leaders like Councilmember Jordan and local nonprofits. So we're really trying to directly address the need for more testing uptown and around Manhattan right out of the gate. So I feel like I've talked a lot. I can talk about our agenda if you'd like. I can talk about the pandemic.
I had one question, and for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News, and we are here with our new Borough President for Manhattan, Mark Levine, who was formerly chair of the Health Committee. So he's been doing a lot of work during this pandemic time. I just had a quick question. I missed it, but I believe that you had a formidable doctor on with Congressman Espeon about a week ago or so that was, giving, can you just give us some just brief updates in terms of where we are with COVID? Like,
I'd be happy to.
What we should be doing.
Be happy to.
What is the latest? Because I know a lot of people that have gotten Omicron or vaccinated, boosted, like what was the recommendation?
Well, Terry, I got my vaccine. I got Johnson & Johnson back last spring, and then I got a booster. I got a Pfizer booster in November. And I also then got hit by Omicron. I got sick, tested positive about 2.5 weeks ago, almost 3 weeks ago. I think it's good to be honest with people that I had a tough 3 or 4 days. Where didn't have trouble breathing. By the way, Terry, I had COVID in the first round in the spring. So
So this
I've really been I've been hit hard. But because I had the benefit of the vaccine, I didn't require any kind of like medical care. I didn't get that sick. They didn't require going to the hospital. And I bounced back pretty fast. I had, as I said, I had 3 or 4 days where I was really kind of knocked down. But bounced back quick and started testing negative fairly quickly. And boy, I'm so grateful that I had the vaccine and the booster, because for people who don't have that protection, Omicron can be more serious. And we are seeing an enormous number of cases every day. We are seeing an average, Terry, of almost 40,000 cases a day in New York City. This is a number that would have been unimaginable even a month ago. No one thought you could get 40,000 cases a day. The good news is that very few of them are requiring hospitalization, but there are still over 6,000 people hospitalized right now. And disproportionately, there are people, Terry, who did not get their vaccine. In fact, the city health department has crunched the numbers and reported that you are 32 more times likely to be hospitalized with COVID if you're not vaccinated compared to someone who is vaccinated. So to those of you who are still on the fence and are still debating, and I understand that people have lots of questions about this, know that it's still a dangerous time to be unvaccinated and that you're still much more likely to be hospitalized. And you don't want that. You don't want that for yourself, for your loved ones. This can still be a very serious disease. I think, Terry, to offer a little bit of possibly hopeful news that we're seeing, I think maybe we're reaching the peak. The number of cases were going up and up and up and up and up, kind of through New Year's Day. And I would say the last week or so, it seems to be sort of plateauing and still unfortunately at a very high level. But what we've seen from other parts of the world, like London and UK, is that it goes up really fast and then it does peak and maybe come down. We're still waiting to see the numbers for today, but I think we might be seeing for the first time that hospitalizations are dropping a tad. Great news. So we may be over the worst, but still, this is a time for caution. We want people to still be very careful out there. Protect yourself with the vaccine. Protect yourself with the high quality mask. Avoid big social events and big parties if you can, because there are still a lot of virus out there, and we really don't want you to get sick.
Okay. With the high quality mask, is there places in the city where folks can get those? Because masks are pretty expensive, or they can be, if you have to, actually purchase them. And I have
Yes.
seen a lot of the N95s around. So, and I know that's pretty much what we're supposed to be wearing now.
Yes. Because Omicron is just so contagious, it's really advisable that we all upgrade our masks.
Mhm.
And cloth masks and paper masks, and even kind of the blue surgical masks are helpful, but they're really not good enough right now. You really need to upgrade to N95 is great. That's the highest standard, but
Okay.
there are two other masks that are very similar. You can tell by the number. One's a KF95, which is a Korean-made version of that mask, which is, I think everyone would say, is good enough. And there's another kind, which is a KF94, which is, so I'm just mentioning some. They're all better protection, but as you say, they're a little bit more expensive and a little bit hard to come by. And this is not right. The city, the state, the federal government should be distributing these in much bigger quantities. We are working on securing, I think we have some supply in our office already, and working on expanding the supply. So I don't want to oversell how big our supply is, but I think that if someone needs a high quality mask, they can come by our office. Again, we're at 431 West 125th. We do have some masks. But the city should be making these available. You should be able to pick these up at libraries, at community centers.
Yeah,
Schools should be giving them out. In fact, you should be able to request that they mail them to your house for free, as well as you should be able to request that they mail a self-test kit. Other parts of the country and world are doing this better than us, and I'm really fighting for this to be more easily available for people uptown and across New York City.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And I know I want to get to some of the other things, but I did want to mention you're correct, because I know that in Washington, D.C., I really want to shout out Mayor Bowser, because actually at the libraries, they were giving out the PCR test and giving out the rapid test. And it was really great, because even though it was a long line, it's moving quickly. They hand it to you. There was like some little tables and benches. A lot of people were just sitting out there doing their tests right then and there. And then with the PCR, they had a great system. It was like a mailbox.
Exactly.
Put that in the mailbox.
Goes to the lab.
Emails and everything, and you found out. And that got rid of people waiting online for 3 hours in the cold and signing their name and getting a text to come back. So I think, there are some systems, and we need to look at, what other folks are doing, and then, mirror that. But just moving on, thank you so much, because obviously COVID, Omicron, health is very important, because if we don't have our health, we're not going to be here to do all the other great things that we do need to do. But what are some of the key concerns that you walked into as borough president, or that you think are extremely important? And I know you're here on Harlem Network News, and Harlem is like a magnification of some things that are going on in the city, but it's, in Manhattan, but it's a big island.
Yes,
So
it sure is.
3 miles, and it's a diverse island. So if you
I walked the whole island in the campaign, and it took me 14 hours.
Okay.
It's a very big island. Well, we have identified 3 major areas of priority, Terry, that are public health, which we've been talking about. We talked about the pandemic, but even beyond that, we really need to help get every single person in Manhattan access to healthcare, a clinic, a doctor. They can get their annual physicals and their checkups, their vaccinations, their referrals to specialists, et cetera. We have so much to do to close the gap in medical care, to address racism in the medical system. You see it most painfully in the high rates of maternal mortalities that are 8 to 12 times higher in the Black communities of New York City relative to the white community. And so we're really working on public health as a long-term priority to address equity, to help get people access to healthy food and quality medical care. Second, the epic challenge of climate change that is here, that no longer is hypothetical. We're seeing the extreme weather. We saw storms this summer that shut down our subway system. We are seeing wildfires out west in the middle of winter, which is unprecedented. And we need to do much more to make our borough, Manhattan, a global leader in the race to carbon neutrality by making buildings more efficient, by electrifying everything. And we need to harden our infrastructure for the climate change that is here, to protect the coastlines, to make sure the subway doesn't stop when it rains. So I'm focusing on climate justice. And then there's equity, which is our third area of focus, which touches everything. Really, all of these issues are interrelated. I've spoken about equity in healthcare, but we're also fighting for equity in housing, in a city, in a borough which has a severe shortage of affordable housing and supportive housing. We're fighting for equity in employment, equity in education, equity in every arena of life, obviously in policing and criminal justice. So these are the major themes we'll be focusing on throughout my term, and if I'm lucky, terms as borough president, borough-wide, but all of them impact Harlem as well. To really look to the long term, we've got to get beyond the crisis stage of this pandemic, which is why I'm fighting for good policies to beat back Omicron. But I'm confident that we will, and that we can turn to the longer term challenges that this borough faces.
Okay, thank you for that. And those are specific: public health, climate change, and equity, and they're all obviously interconnected. I'm Terri Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And as you know, Harlem Network News is a new media platform, and we're very honored today to have our new Borough President of Manhattan, Mark Levine, who is no stranger. As you know, he's been on the scene for a long time. We met a long time ago in Hamilton Heights with the Homeowners Association, and he was very proactive then. He always came and, you know, addressed the community. So that is a great thing. So public health, climate change, and it's interesting when you say climate change, because when we say climate change, it always seems like it's some far off thing. Yeah. But it's really, really not, because this is an island. And we know what happened during Hurricane Sandy. Many buildings were flooded. We lost electricity. You know, we even have right here in our community, Esplanade Gardens, you know, which needs a seawall, and It's a back and forth as to whether or not the tenants have to pay for it or the city, you know, so it's not a far removed thing. You know, subways getting flooded, whatever the last storm we saw, you know, water was up to the waist up the stairs. Yep. So this is not a far concept. And then equity comes into it all. Would you just share, just so that everyone really knows, as the Borough President of Manhattan, what is the power that you have? What scope does your office take in? What can you do? Who are you interacting with? What is your relationship with the mayor? Thank you. And
these are really good questions. I think that the office of the borough president is important at any moment, but I believe even more so now because of the crisis facing Manhattan. You know, I've talked a lot to C. Virginia Fields, who's a extraordinary leader and one of my predecessors as Manhattan Borough President, who was in office when 9/11 occurred, and then her whole second term was defined by crisis response. And I feel this is a similar moment for Manhattan because of the pandemic, because of the economic shock, because of the scourge of gun violence, which we spoke about earlier, because of the challenges facing our small businesses, our community arts institutions, because of the desperate shortage of affordable housing. And the borough president has a direct role in addressing every one of these challenges. There are really four main powers. First, in the budget, borough president actually has tens of millions of dollars in capital money that can be used to support upgrading schools and libraries. It can be used for arts institutions and other nonprofits, for improvements in parks, et cetera. Secondly, the borough president has real influence over land use and rezonings. And this is coming into play now in a rezoning proposed that Councilmember Jordan spoke about
Yes.
on 145th and Lennox. And the land use process starts at the community board, but the next stop is the desk of the borough president. And there are other steps along the way through the city planning commission and ultimately in the city council and finally with the mayor. So I'm already extremely focused on this rezoning proposal for 145. I read with great interest the resolution that was passed by Community Board 10. Thought they made a number of excellent points. In particular, I want to echo their concerns about the number of affordable units and also the income targets for those affordable units. The question about whether they're really accessible to people in the neighborhood. And even I applaud them for raising the question of how big are those units? Are they all studios and 1 bedrooms? Well, those aren't really going to work for families. You really need 2 bedrooms for families and sometimes even 3 bedrooms. So these are all questions on the table that I'll be engaging with in the coming weeks. Next, the borough president makes over 1,000 appointments, including to community boards. And really the borough president's office runs the community boards, oversees the staff, et cetera. But many, many other boards. My office appoints the members of the community advisory boards for hospitals, like Harlem Hospital, for example. We appoint members of our community education councils. Each district has one, including District 5 and District 3, which cover Central Harlem. We appoint members of boards of parks conservancies and business improvement districts, like the 125th Street Business Improvement District. We appoint staff of cultural institutions and museums, for example, El Museo del Barrio in East Harlem, and major institutions like Carnegie Hall and the Museum of Natural History. It goes on and on and on. And finally, Terry, the last power of the office is to introduce legislation in the city council. Now, I don't have a vote in the council anymore, but my office can introduce bills, and I plan on it. It all adds up between the budget, the appointments, land use, legislation. It adds up to a very important platform for putting forth an agenda for the borough and organizing to achieve it. Lastly, you asked about the relationship with the mayor.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
Yes, look, the borough president is an independently elected executive, and we have 5 of us in the city council. Our job is to work with the mayor, absolutely, but also to advocate for the interests of our borough and the communities in our borough. And sometimes that means pushing the mayor, but collaborating where appropriate. We have something great now. 4 of the 5 borough presidents were friends and colleagues from the city council. We all served for 8 years in the council. Vanessa Gibson in the Bronx, who I mentioned earlier.
Yes, yes, congratulations.
Donovan Richards in Queens, Antonio Reynoso in Brooklyn. We all came into the council together in 2014. We served for 8 years. Actually, Borough President Richards, he got a 1-year jump on us. So he's the veteran of the bunch. He's the senior borough president. But we're even reaching out to the borough president in Staten Island, who's a Republican. But you're going to see a lot of collaboration. And in fact, 4 of us, myself, Borough Presidents Gibson, Richards, and Reynoso, issued a joint statement on Friday calling for the extension of the moratorium on evictions in New York State, which is currently set to expire on January 15th, less than a week away. So that was our first joint statement together on behalf of tenants. You're going to see a lot more collaboration amongst 4 and maybe even 5 of the borough presidents in the years ahead, Terry.
Okay. Like I said, starting with this 2022, with so many new public officials and, people that are being very innovative in the way that they are reaching out and speaking truth to power is a very great thing. I think, it's giving us hope, and also being touchable to our public officials and accessible is a very, very good thing, because it means that your boots on the ground. And of course, your predecessor, Gail Brewer, who's now back to the city council.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, so she's, still with us.
Thankfully.
But that was just the great thing, that she was everywhere. And, so you've got to be everywhere.
Tough act to follow, but I'm gonna do the best I can. I promise I'm gonna be extremely active. I'm gonna be on the ground, and that uptown is gonna be a priority for me every single day.
Okay, so thank you for that. If you could just shed a little bit of light, because the 145th project, it has to do with land use, it has to do with zoning, but it also is a benchmark for what is happening in the city and what has particularly happened, in Manhattan, uptown Manhattan, where there's been, some people call it gentrification, but there's been a lot of housing that's been built that is not affordable. It says affordable housing, but it's not affordable to the community. It's displacing people. We have a huge homeless population. We've got a whole drug thing that's going on, not even necessarily from people from the community. And then we've got like a wave of violence going on, which a lot of people attest that it is starting with the housing situation. So how can we address this? Because this is just continuing to happen. And the more it happens, the more it becomes a norm, the more people get displaced. So what can be done? Because you got the developers on one side saying, well, we have to do it this way because, it's economics and this and that. But then meanwhile, there are people being displaced and their carrots being given. And it's all about people having a decent place to live. Where does the city fit in terms of stopping this? I mean, they're screaming about homelessness, but why do we continue to build apartments that nobody can really afford unless you're extremely wealthy? I mean, the mean income in Upper Manhattan and even all of Manhattan is not $80,000 or $90,000, and even if it is, if they have, a big family, what are we talking about? So if you could just address what is that?
Absolutely, Terry, and I appreciate the way you asked the question, because housing is connected to homelessness and public health and public safety. They're all connected, and but housing is key to life here. And we have a crisis, an absolute crisis in the lack of supply of affordable housing in Manhattan. And it threatens our way of life here. If we don't address it, this will become a borough where only people who are extremely wealthy can afford to live, as has happened in some other parts of the country, increasingly the case in San Francisco and elsewhere. And we can't let that happen to Manhattan. We must create more affordable housing. And as you pointed out, affordability needs to be defined in a way that makes it accessible to the people who live here. And there are times where affordable housing is built targeting people who make $120,000 a year. And honestly, it's even tough for people at that income level to get housing. And so, I'm not negating that, but really it's people who are making minimum wage, $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year, trying to support a family, people who are on SSI and really struggling at even lower incomes. And what?
Seniors.
And seniors who are on a fixed income, who are living off Social Security and nothing else. And all of them are desperate for affordable housing. And so we have to use every tool at our disposal to increase the production of affordable housing here. We need to dramatically increase the budget that the city has for subsidizing the creation of affordable housing through the Department of Housing and Preservation, HPD. We need to be more aggressive in using rezonings to ensure that what comes out is the maximum number of affordable units possible at levels of affordability that are accessible to people who are really struggling. And by the way, we need to upzone not just in, we need to have more equity in the places that we upzone. Traditionally, it's only been done in neighborhoods of color. We need to upzone in wealthy areas too. And we actually voted to do something pretty unprecedented by upzoning in Soho in a project which will create, we hope hundreds of, not we hope, we expect hundreds of units of affordable housing in a neighborhood which desperately needs it. That rezoning was not perfect. If we have time, we can talk about it. But nonetheless, I'm glad to see that it's not only communities of color who are being upzoned. But as for 145 in Lenox, this is a lot. Actually, it's 5 lots. One of which is the building that the National Action Network rents. It's the House of Justice. It's probably known to everybody. We've all been many, many times. But it's not just that building. It's 5 lots, so it's a very large footprint. And the developer has the ability, what we call as of right, just to build something there, maybe 50 or 100 units that would all be quote market rate, which is to say very expensive housing that would probably be unaffordable to anyone in Harlem. They could also do something like put a self-storage facility in there, which doesn't do anything for housing that we desperately need. So the developer said, if you give me the ability to go much bigger, then I'll put in some affordable housing. Well, there are problems with the proposal. One, the scale, the height, and the comparatively limited number of affordable units, and also the income targets of those units. And as I mentioned earlier, the size of those units, there are a lot of studios and 1 bedrooms and not enough of the bigger ones. So the community board pushed back hard, saying, identifying all the issues I just mentioned and rejecting the proposal because of the low number of affordable units, the income targets, all of those things that I mentioned. And so now it's moving through the land use process, but community board made a really strong statement, and I appreciate their work and read with interest their resolution, and now I'm diving into it myself.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I don't know the details. We're going to be wrapping up. We thank you for your time. But I do know that in Brooklyn, I believe under Charles Barron's district, they have built some, housing that's been 100% like real affordable. So
yes, and we've done that in my district too. We have a great project which is about to open on 108th Street between Amsterdam and Columbus. It's over 200 units, 100% affordable. Sorry, Terry, but yes, that is possible. Yes. But those are properties that the city owns. Okay. So we can build whatever we want there. Right. But it's when it's a private owner, it's more complicated. Now, if the owner wants a rezoning, an upzoning, well, then we have leverage, and so we can put demands on the table. Okay. But I know this is complicated. Well, I'm happy to come back. We can talk more about.
Okay, yeah, because it's in depth. I'm just saying that given what we're dealing with, the trickle down impacts everybody. When there's not housing that people can afford, it's a big, and I'm Terri Wisdom, this is Harlem Network News, we're winding down, but it's a trickle down that impacts everybody. It impacts, the quality of the education for the young people. I still remember during the campaign time, our mayor, Eric Adams, saying that every day when he went to school, he had all his clothes in a plastic bag because he didn't know where they were going to be living when he got home from school. So these are the kinds of things that are very, very impactful, and they impact everybody. So finally, if you would just share something on the drug situation going on, the crime situation going on, and it's going on across the city, and it's not just a focus on Uptown. What are some of the issues everywhere? And then, your closing statement, and you're gonna come back, of course.
Well, that's a promise. I'm already looking forward to the next visit. We have a humanitarian crisis in the scale of homelessness in this city, which is directly connected to the crisis of mental health and of substance abuse.
Yes.
And the city has really failed to adequately address this multi-front crisis. First and foremost, we desperately need more affordable housing and more supportive housing, which is the form of affordable housing that has a lot of social services built in. And it's the best for getting people who are at risk of homelessness into a home. We need to improve our shelter system so that it's not a place that people fear to go and opt to remain on the street because they feel less unsafe on the street, incredibly, than they might in the shelter system. We have to do much, much better on the mental health and substance abuse services that we're offering, because that is often driving homelessness. And we have to have more equity in the siting of these facilities. Every community in the borough and the city has to share in the benefits and burdens of city infrastructure.
Thank you.
The good stuff like parks should be equally spread around. But also there is facilities like drug treatment centers, which can be difficult for neighborhoods and also should be spread around evenly. And they're not right now. There are some neighborhoods, particularly East Harlem, that have way more than their fair share of drug treatment facilities. And I've called that out in the campaign and going to work to address it as borough president. East Harlem really does stand out. It's not unique, but it really does stand out as having an unfair concentration of those facilities. And you do feel it on the street. I've taken tours with neighborhood residents.
Yeah.
I've also toured Ward's Island, Randall's Island, where a number of the homeless shelters are located that are, because it's right next to East Harlem, it's a lot of people are coming over from those shelters right on the 125th Street. And I think we could probably do better in maybe expanding the bus line and upgrading some of the services on Randall's, so you have less of a direct impact on the surrounding neighborhood. We have a lot to do on this issue. I am really committed to addressing the homeless crisis, to addressing safety on the street. I consider it to be non-negotiable. We need to ensure that people feel safe in their neighborhoods. And we need to use every tool at our disposal on the health front, on the youth development front, on the anti-gun violence front. We need to have preventative services like job training. And policing is one of the tools. And of course, we want policing to be accountable, that it not be disproportionately impacting communities of color. But neighborhood policing, community policing on the ground is welcomed by most residents of Uptown, and it should be part of the solution as well. So it's a multi-front effort, Terri.
Okay, thank you. So much to say. We could continue and continue. The policing is very important. Sitting in the Community Board 10 meeting, I know we had one of the representatives from one of the police stations, and they were talking about, the issues of being able to police on the subway. There are people openly using drugs at 125th, which is a major thoroughfare. And they were just saying they don't really have the full teams to address this, though the transit police are addressing it too. So these are great concerns, because this is like the vein of the city. The subways, we have a lot of people from other countries coming. If you go to Times Square, there's over police, and it should be such at Harlem as well, because Harlem is second in tourism to Times Square only. So the equity on the island is an expectation for sure. So a few closing words. We thank you so much for joining us. We look to have you maybe every couple of weeks or so. And, we want to, get some support for Harlem Network News, because I think the work we're doing is extremely important. You know, we do have a New York one, but the 2-minute sound bites don't really allow people to understand what's happening, you know, what is happening, and also to weigh in on what's happening. I think we've all got to do this together. And media drives a lot because people hear it and they think because they heard it on TV, it's real, it's true, and they fathom their lives after that. So, closing words.
Thank you, Terry. First, thank you for creating a really vital community news source. We need local news now more than ever. We need community-based news now more than ever. And we're losing community-based news outlets, newspapers, radio stations,
Yes.
really at a painful rate all over America, including in here in New York City. So thank you for putting in the effort to establish what has already become a really important source of news for people uptown, where you can take time to go into depth and have real meaningful conversations. So I've been happy to be here before and happy to come again. I am incredibly honored to have now taken office one weekend as the new Manhattan Borough President. And I am deeply committed to helping Manhattan come back from this difficult 2 years, to get beyond the public health crisis, not to come back exactly as what we were in 2019, but to come back better, healthier, stronger, more just, to bring back small business, to bring back our small arts community, to expand affordable housing, to address the homelessness crisis, to address the scourge of gun violence. This is a big agenda, but I'm really absolutely confident that Manhattan can do this, and I'm going to put my heart and soul into this fight, and grateful for the chance to be here tonight to talk about it. Thank you so much, Terry.
Well, thank you so much. And how can folks get in touch with you? I know there's the Northern Manhattan office, the downtown office. Who are some of the point people?
Well, if I'm going to ask Athena to come on, because I'm so new, I don't know the phone number to the office yet.
Okay, thanks.
Athena, if you could share contact info for the office, that would be great.
Okay.
Sure. So our Northern Manhattan office is 212-531-1609. And our downtown office is 212-669-8300.
Okay, would you repeat that, Athena? So those of us that are little can take it down.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Northern Manhattan office, 212-531-1609. And our downtown office, 212-669-8300.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And they can just call those numbers and whoever picks up will help them. I don't know, does the Northern Manhattan office still have a walk-in policy, or at least, you know, even if they can't be seen, somebody can tell them something?
Yes, we're there every day due to the test site being open. So anyone can stop by. We'll take their intake or documentation and follow up with them. We are asking, due to COVID, that people call us on the phone. We're not having people come in to the office physically, but staff are there and ready to help every day of the week.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you very much. It's been great. Congratulations, Borough President Mark Levine, MVP. We appreciate it. And thank you, Athena, for continuing on with us. And let us know when your meeting with the mayor is coming.
I will.
Please, and we'd love to get you on as well. Mayor Eric Adams, it's important. We need everybody to get on board. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Terry.
Great day in Harlem, and so goes Harlem, so goes the world, and Manhattan. And I'm Terri Wisdom, Harlem Network News. You can reach us at harlemnetworknews.com, 646-261-5397. You can make donations, or if you have stories, please let us know, or if you have a skill set. So thank you very much, and have a great day, everyone. Be safe, be well, and review all the vital information that you've had, and use the services of our great public service. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry. All the best.
Borough President. Okay, take care. Thank you, Athena. Have a good day.